Hello, my name is Dave, and today we're going to talk about programming with parameters. There we go. Parameters and arguments, and there's some debate over this terminology, but I'll show you what they mean in just a moment. Suppose I want to write a method that, well, first of all, suppose I have a method called doPushUp that tells the computer to perform a push-up. Maybe I'm really mad at the computer and I feel that the computer is out of shape and I want it to do a push-up. So we will, maybe we're not satisfied with just one push-up. We will program the computer to do 10 push-ups. Do 10. You know what? I think the computer's really out of shape. Maybe 100 push-ups. Do 100 push-ups. And of course, do 100 push-ups. I could type do push-up, call that method 100 times, but that'd probably be a bad idea. So we'll use a loop, and there are certainly lots of ways we could use a loop here, but I have decided to use a while loop, just in case on the hunch you might be familiar with while loops but not for loops yet. I want to run 100 times, so I'm going to start a count n at 100, and n is really the number of push-ups left to do, which means that if we were smarter we would probably call this push-ups left, but for some reason I'm calling it n. Alright, when do I keep doing push-ups? Well, I keep doing push-ups when I have more push-ups left to do. In other words, when the number of push-ups left to do is greater than 0. When I get down to 0 push-ups left to do, I'm done. So I will perform my push-up, I will ask the computer, I will demand the computer perform a push-up, and I will decrement n. And with any luck, when I run this code, I will watch my computer lifting itself up and down 100 times till it is big and strong. Alright, now you know what? Did I write 100 push-ups? I wish I had told it to do 300 push-ups. Well, if I want to do 300 push-ups, one thing I could do is I could rewrite all of this code. Public static, don't worry, I'm not going to do this. Do 300 push-ups. And now I can have a second method that tells it to do 300 push-ups. Maybe I sometimes want it to do 100 and sometimes 300. You're probably noticing I could just make 300 push-ups call 100 push-up 3 times. So we'll make it 307 push-ups. I'm very specific about the number of push-ups here. So I can't just keep calling do 100 push-ups to do 307 push-ups. So I'm kind of stuck rewriting all of that code, except the line that says n equals 100 is now going to be n equals 307. And it seems silly to have to define a new one of these methods every time I decide there's a new number of push-ups I might want my computer to perform at once. So there's a nice solution to that. What I do is I tell, and you may have seen this sort of thing going on, you may have seen that sometimes when we call a method, we might pass some information to it, hopefully not that information. So on the receiving end, I can tell it when this method is called, it will receive an integer, n. Instead of me telling it there's an integer n and it starts at 100, I will give it an integer n. Performs n push-ups. Performs the number of push-ups I tell it. In fact, I shouldn't call it do 100 push-ups. I should just say do many push-ups, maybe. Do many push-ups, it takes in a number n, and it performs n push-ups. Right? And in fact, if we run this now, let's see, so somewhere else in my program I might write, you know what, I'd like to order the computer to do many push-ups, and maybe 85 this time. And so now you can see 85 gets passed as an argument. Alright, so we have some words here. This, let's write this with an arrow. This is an argument. Whatever I pass to my method is called an argument, and this is called a parameter. My parameter is named n. And not everyone agrees on which, some people will refer to this interchangeably as parameter and argument, and most people aren't this careful in their terminology, but I think it's helpful to know this. Sometimes people call this the formal parameter, but anyway, I pass an argument value. Actually, I write an expression here, so it doesn't have to be do many push-ups 85. Maybe it's do many push-ups 80 plus 5. Maybe I decide to perform this calculation later. So this could be any expression, right? This is an argument expression. That kind of fits. An argument expression. And this is a parameter name. This is always going to be the name of a variable. We're going to declare a variable with this name. Okay, so we can ask the computer to perform any number of push-ups we like. This is definitely progress. Definitely progress. We're feeling good about what technology can do. The next thing I would like to do, actually, I want to explore some of the common ways we might mess this up before we try anything too fancy. So one error we might make is we might say int n over here. Because we might feel like, well, we're using a variable n, we're in the habit of declaring whatever variable we use, so we'll declare that n is an integer. And if I do this and compile my program, Java is going to yell at me. Java is going to be upset because Java will say, you've already declared n. I already know n is an integer. Why are you telling me n is an integer again? So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make sure I don't redeclare my variable. The more common mistake that I've seen beginners make is they'll do something like this. Do many push-ups takes in n and something like this. Right, so now if I were to call this code, if I were to call this method and I say, I would like you to do many push-ups and it'll be 85, and I pass 85. If I call this method and say do many push-ups 85, how many push-ups is the computer going to do? Well, it's going to do 100, because what this program says to do is when I call do many push-ups, n gets this value 85, and then the very first thing I do is I say, you know what, I don't want n to be 85, n should be 100. Clearly, if I'm setting the value of the parameter on the very first line of the method, I'm defeating the purpose of using parameters in the first place, right? Why pass in this value n if the first thing I'm going to do is ignore the value you passed me and replace it with 100? So this method is always going to do 100 push-ups no matter what value I initialize n to be when I pass it in. So this gets at, we're used to having to initialize a variable before we start using it. So, if we wanted to say int x, and then I want to do something with x, like maybe I want to add 3 to it at some point later, and I don't know what maybe I'm printing out, if I know how to print things out yet. Maybe I'm printing out x plus 3. Well, that's not going to work unless I've given x an initial value. Like maybe I write this, x should be initialized to 2. Also, the funny thing about working with parameters is I don't see that initialization. Right, so let's go back to the correct way. Here, it looks like I'm using n, but I've never given n a value. That's because n will receive a value at the moment I call the method. When I call do many push-ups 85, that's when n becomes 85. It gets initialized to 85. When I call it with 80 plus 5, well, we evaluate 80 plus 5, we get 85, and that 85 gets passed in, n becomes that. Alright, let's maybe explore another method here, and then we'll take a closer look at what's really going on with these parameters and how they work. Let's see, maybe we can erase something. How about this? Okay, let's write another method. Suppose we want to write a method that finds which of two numbers is larger. So therefore, it's going to be two integers, so the answer of which of two integers is larger, for example, which of 3 and 5 is larger, well, the answer is 5. The answer will be an integer. Find the maximum, the one that's larger, of two integers. So I'm going to have two parameters. So now I'm going to write this program as if x and y already have values, and I'll do exactly what you would do if you wanted to find out which of two numbers was larger. Well, if the first one, x, is greater than the second one, y, then the maximum value is x. And if that's not the case, then the maximum value must be y. And if you're worried about what if x and y are equal, well, right now if x and y are equal, we return y, but that's okay, because if I ask for the max of 3 and 3, who cares which 3 I return? That's perfectly reasonable to return y when it's equal. Alright, and when I use this method, I might see a method call that looks something like find the max of 3 and 5, and with any luck that will return 5, and if I ask for the max of 5 and 3, That should also return 5. If I ask for the max of 5 and 5, that would return 5. Alright, we'll take a closer look at how exactly this parameter passing works in the next video. I'll see you then.